Good day, people. Today we're going to look at some test-taking strategies. The first strategy we're going to look at is understand what the question is asking you to do. So your job is to read the question carefully to understand what you are being asked to do. You can usually find this information in the last sentence of the problem. So read the whole problem, even if you think you know the answer. Alright, so we're going to look at this question. Understand what the question is asking you to do. Gabriella has 2,000 stamps in her stamp collection. Of these, 32% show aircraft, 18% show animals, 15% show railroads. The rest of the stamps in her collection show famous people. How many stamps in Gabriella's collection show famous people? So what is the question asking us to do? The question is asking us to find how many of the stamps showed famous people. How would we go about doing this? So we see that 32% show aircraft, 18% showed animals, and 15% showed railroad. Alright, and they said the rest. So we can use a variable if you want. The rest showed famous people. Alright, we know that the total would be 100%. So let's see how much that is. So this is 50, 65. So that's 65% plus that x would give us 100%. So obviously if we subtract 65 from both sides, we see that the rest would have been 35%. Alright, so we are saying 35% of that 2,000 would be famous people, which is 700. So 700 of the stamps would be famous people. So remember, the last part of the sentence basically told us what the question wants us to do. It wants us to find how many stamps were famous people, add famous people on it. Alright, the next strategy, recognize relevant information. So relevant information is information that you need to solve the problem. You can usually find this information in the first few sentences of the problem. Read the problem carefully and underline or circle information that you can use to find the answer. This strategy is very useful for multi-step word problems and questions with data displayed in tables or graphs. So here we have a question. Jamal paid for 8 bags of concrete mix and 10 bags of sand to be delivered. Each bag of concrete mix costs $46.20 and each bag of sand costs $20.50. Delivery was $30 for 8 bags of concrete and $15 for 8 bags of sand. How much did Jamal pay for the bags of concrete including delivery? So this is going back to test strategy number 1. You have to look what the question is asking us to find. So it's asking us how much did he pay for just the bags of concrete. So just looking at this information, we see that there are a lot of stuff that is needed to do this, and there are some information that we don't need to do this question. Alright, so we see that we need this information to solve the problem because they asked us about the bags of concrete mix. They didn't ask us about the bags of sand, so we do not need this. Alright, so we need this information as well because we need to know what's the cost for each bag of concrete mix. We do not need to know this. So I'll put do not need. Alright, so we also need to know what's the cost to deliver these. So that we need this information that's $30 to deliver the 8 bags of concrete. We do not need to know about the sand because the question is not about the sand. So we do not need this information. Alright, as obviously we can see that the question is asking us about the bags of concrete. So it's $46.20 for 1 bag, and we bought 8 bags. So that would cost us $369.60. Then we had to pay for delivery, and they said delivery for the 8 bags of concrete was $30. So we have to add that $30 to that amount, and we'll see that we get $399.60. Alright, the closest one to this would be G. Test strategy number 3A, test the answer choices. So we can use this when we have a multiple choice question to help us to solve the problem. For some multiple choice question, you can test each answer choice to figure out which one is correct. Be sure to check all the answer choices if you think you have the answer or the question is asking you. So even if you think you have the correct answer, you need to test all the answers just the same, because sometimes there can be error on the paper and you miss that. And sometimes they could ask you for all, select all that applies, and you only selected one. This strategy is very useful when the question is asking to find a missing number in an equation or to identify a false statement. Alright, so we're going to look at this question. What is the value of x? Alright, there are more than one ways we could go about this. We could just solve this equation. We could have 3x plus 12 minus 7 would give us 5 equal 29. And from there we could subtract 5 from both sides. So we see that 3x would be equal to 24. Dividing both sides by 3, we see that x would be equal to 8. That's one way we could have done it. Another way we could have done it to verify our answer, or just to test the answers that they give us, we could just substitute each of these into the equation. So we'd have 3 times 3 plus 12 minus 7. How much does that give us? That's 9. 9 plus 5, that's 14. Alright, so let us do 3 times 4 plus 12 minus 7. That would be equal to 12 plus 5, that's 17. So this is not the answer for sure. That's not the answer because it's supposed to be equal to 29. So 3 times 6 plus 12 minus 7, and that would be equal to 3, 6, 18. So that would be 23. And lastly, so this can't be the answer because that's not true either. 3 times 8 plus 12 minus 7. So we know that 3 8 is 24 plus 5, that would give us 29. So we see that this was the answer. So even though you solved your equation and you got 8 over here, you still need to practice this method just to test the answers to verify that you have gotten the correct answer. Alright, use the multiple choice answers to help you to solve the problem. Use process of elimination. For some multiple choice questions, you can eliminate the answers that are incorrect. Make sure that you have a reason to eliminate an answer. So don't just eliminate it, make sure you have a reason. This strategy is very useful for problems involving operations with whole numbers or fractions, or problems in which one or more answers are clearly incorrect. Alright, let us look at this question. Melissa bought a scarf on sale for $19.50. That was originally priced at $30. So the price of the scarf was originally $30. She's paying $19.50. What was the price of the scarf reduced by? So what percent was it reduced by? Alright, so for this strategy, we need to identify at least one answer choice that can be eliminated and explain why. Alright, since the original price was $30, think about it. 10% of $30 would be $3. So if 10% came off, that would be $27. So we know that this cannot be the answer because 10% is too low. So we know our answer must be greater than 10% because 10% is just $3. And looks like about $10.50 came off. Alright, 50% of $30 would be $15. Yeah, $15 would be too much. So we could eliminate this as well because we know that 50% didn't come off. So it's less than 50% but greater than 10%. So we eliminated these two based on just calculating in our heads. Alright, so we eliminated these two and we have our reason. We know that 50% would be $15 and we all saw that it was 30 minus 19.50. Only $10.50 came off. So $15 was too much, that came off, and $3 was too small, that came off. Alright, so we can proceed now to solve our question. So we will have a 50% chance of making a mistake now, because we eliminated 2. And each question will have 2 obviously wrong answers that you can eliminate every time. Alright, so we have $10.50 divided by the original amount times 100. And we see that we get 35%. Alright, our last strategy. Check and justify your answer. You can check your answer in different ways, including solving the problem using a different method, use addition to check subtraction, use multiplication to check division. Justify means explain how you know your answer makes sense in the context of the problem. So sometimes you get an answer and you're supposed to ask yourself, could this be the answer? Because imagine a question asks you the number of days and you got a negative number. You would never assume that that's correct because you know that the days can't be negative. So you can use words, equations, or pictures to show your thinking. You can also use estimation to show that your answer is reasonable. Alright, let us look at this choice. For every 40 kittens that are adopted at the Good Hope Animal Shelter, 8 have gray fur. If 360 kittens are adopted from the shelter, about how many will have gray fur? So our job is to justify our answer by show how you know that your answer is reasonable. Alright, so we know that there are 40 kittens and 8 have gray fur. So that's 8 out of the 40 had gray fur. So we are saying if you have 360 of those, how much would have gray fur? Alright, so we could use this method to do it. So we could multiply by 360, and we see that we would get 72. So this is one method we could use to do it. We could also set up a proportion. 8 over 40 would be equal to how much over 360? And we cross multiply, we get 4. 40x would be equal to 2,880. Dividing both sides by 40. You see that x would be equal to 72. Alright, so a part of justifying your answer is actually doing it using a next method to do it. So you could use a next method to justify your answer, or you could look at the reasonableness of, or the reasonability of the answer. Alright, looking at the answer, we know that 8 out of 70 out of 40 are gray fur. So 360 is about 9 times 40. So 9 times 8, that's actually 72. So that looks reasonable. Or we could also say that 8 out of 40 looks like 1/5. So we need to find at least 1/5 of that 360. And 96 looks like it's too big to be 1/5 of 360. So we know that that can't be the answer. Alright, thank you for watching.